Do you think that capitalism is starting to lose its way? Well, that's what a lot of people are saying. So that's why on December 4th, 2025, I'm hosting a live episode of Unpolished MBA with author Douglas Stevens. He wrote a book about this. It's called In Search of a Moral Foundation for Capitalism. So together, we're going to unpack what a moral compass is and what does modern capitalism actually look like. You can join the live audience and add your voice to the discussion. Just go to unpolishedmba.com/live. Unpolishedmba.com/live. Hello, everyone. This is Monique Mills, the host of Unpolished MBA, and today I have another smart and interesting person that I'm speaking with, Dr. Julie Gurner. Julie, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here today and have this conversation with you.
Yeah, so for those of you who are not familiar with, do you want me to call you Dr. Gurner, Julie? What's most appropriate?
You can call me anything that isn't offensive. So if you want to call me Julie or Dr. Gurner or whatever, Dr. G, people call me all sorts of things and I respond to all of them.
Okay. All right. I would like to elaborate on so many of your spicy takes that you have in your writing, social media, and I would say LinkedIn is really the main channel that I see your content. But on the topic of assertiveness, you had a recent post about that in your newsletter, in your Substack, and I want to elaborate on that.
Sure.
Let's start with it being rude. I just want to say this because I just had this conversation with some women this morning. I had a meeting this morning and we were talking about sales, and it was mostly men in the conversation, some women, and the men were like, hey, I'm pumped up. I tell them this what they need, this what they want, and this assertiveness. And I said, well, I'm in sales. I mean, I'm an entrepreneur. You can't be an entrepreneur without being in sales, but I have a different approach. And it's not that I'm less aware of the energy you're exerting, but that's not my style. And also for women, for the younger women that were on the line, I just want it to be understood that when we're assertive, particularly as women, we can be called names for giving that same energy. So it's a fine line that we kind of have to walk sometimes. So give me your take on that and also an elaboration on your post.
Sure. I mean, so first I want to start off, I was just kind of taking notes when you were speaking, that there's spicy takes. And I think that what's so interesting about that is that my normal client base are people who are like either your CEO, your executive, you're kind of higher up in the companies that you work in. And so the things that I tend to write about are observations from that group of people and kind of bringing them down to everyone else and to say, look, this is how this group operates. And these are the things kind of required to be at that level. But saying that, I think that everyone has a different type of style, right? Like when you talk about navigate, what you're talking about a lot of times is really navigating workplace, political environments, judgments. You're trying to being positioned for promotion, being seen in a certain way. Impression management really matters. And sadly, sometimes that shifts between how people view women and men who have exactly the same traits.
Yep.
Every now and again, you get really fortunate and you get someone who loves to see that fire and that kind of the same kind of behaviors because they understand it and they get it, but oftentimes they don't. And so how you demonstrate that same kind of fire is really important. And I think that although the behaviors can shift a little bit, that fire is the same. I believe that. I believe that women are equally ambitious. I think they can be equally kind of aggressive in business, but how that shows itself is sometimes a little bit different, and that's okay. You just find different doors to get into the same room. So when you're talking about assertiveness and people associating that with kind of being mean or being kind of aggressive, I think about it as directness, and how directness is interpreted changes depending on who you are. But the directness in many ways, especially in leadership roles, is really essential. Like, and how you demonstrate that directness can shift. but you're probably not going to be uh, vague as a leader and expect that you're going to get the results that you need. So I do feel like that assertiveness has to be a trait across the board,
Yeah.
but how you demonstrate that and navigate that within your workplace dynamics, given who you are, given, what your goals are internally at the company too, who you need to be working with and understanding your surroundings may shift. But I know that whether I've worked with someone who is a CMO or someone who is in their first managerial jobs, they recognize they get better results when they're really straightforward about what they need and they're as clear and direct as possible. And hopefully they can frame that in a way that other people come to appreciate and understand because your clarity gives them clarity.
Absolutely. And I quote from you, people think being assertive means being rude. It doesn't. It means you stop expecting people to read your mind. That is your quote.
Yeah, I stand by it.
So if you've ever held back, anyone that's listening, if you've ever held back from saying what you really think, this is the episode for you. So I want to hop into that, to the topic of why people struggle to speak up. Okay.
Okay.
So you said that most people water down their communication out of fear. So why do you think so many professionals struggle with being direct? Fear of what? Being fired? Not being liked? Like what?
I think that sometimes, there are a lot of things that play into this that maybe you've seen yourself in the places that you've been. I think that people, they avoid conflict, right? And
Yeah.
sometimes when you are direct about what you want, people don't like that. And that you feel like, oh, I'm going to have to deal with so-and-so who's going to give me pushback. And then that's kind of interpreted as negatively. So they're almost trying to nudge people in the right direction instead of being as direct as they could be about what they need. So I think that there's definitely a conflict avoidance or an anticipation of conflict. Most of it, in my opinion, is like anticipatory anxiety. Anticipate that there's going to be some kind of a bad outcome from you being as direct as you need to be. And however that demonstrates itself, whether it's avoiding conflict, whether it's avoiding, I don't want them not to like me, or being judged, or being seen a certain way, there's this anticipatory anxiety that lives around assertiveness that sometimes keeps people from being as assertive as they need to be. And so I always tell people, try something small that's very low stakes that you can try to be more direct about. And whether it's like, hey, maybe somebody's writing a report for you or creating something for you, and you're able to say, hey, Ted, I know that you're putting together that report. Can you just be sure that it includes statistics on our conversion rates? I'd really appreciate that. And what's Ted going to say? No, I refuse to put in statistics about our conversion rates, right? But you start getting the sense that, wow, all it takes for me to get what I want is to find good ways of asking for it and being specific.
So let me say this. So as a leader, Ted would feel or will spread rumors that I am a micromanager. So a lot of managers and people who lead people are afraid of being called a micromanager or trying to direct every move. And then some folks are like, well, we're all adults. I know this. I'm a professional. And they're so afraid of that. How do you handle that, where that direction is perceived as micromanaging?
I think that people can be given specific, it's a great question, because I do think that people fear micromanagement as some sort of that they're gonna dive in and this is how they're gonna be perceived. But giving people parameters to me is not micromanaging, it's clarity. If you're diving in and saying, I'm gonna show you how to pull those statistics, and this is how you're going to report them, and this is how you're going to find them, and this is how you're going to start tracking them. Like that starts to feel a lot like micromanagement.
Yep.
But to me, to say, hey, can you be sure it includes X, Y, and Z? It sounds like a person who doesn't want to receive the report and then have you go back and redo the report and go and find those things and be corrected. And now we're both wasting our time. It gives Ted, to me, a way to succeed. Like, I'm going to tell you exactly how to be successful with me. And you can meet the bar every time. I
Yeah.
think that it's more demoralizing for Ted to come to the table with his report, and then you say, it's missing X, Y, and Z. And then he comes back and he does that, and then, it's missing this. Like, to me, that sounds like it's worse to have a rumor that you're never satisfied than a rumor that, hey, she tells me exactly what she wants, and I'm able to really present that in any way you want, but I'm able to meet the mark. And she praises me for it, right? Like, so he's going to come back to the table. He's going to include those conversion rates. You're going to go, that's really fantastic, Ted. Thank you so much. It really seems like we've had a lot of growth, or maybe not had a lot of growth, depending. But you are able to have better conversations. They feel more successful, and you build better rapport and relationships, and they start to understand and anticipate what you want. Next time Ted does his reports, he's going to remember, she always likes to see those conversion rates. I'm going to make sure I include those. So I think that, to me, I haven't seen it play out in a way that people are accused of micromanaging unless they really get in the weeds with that stuff.
For sure. I think the way things like that are perceived can be subjective because of the person, right? Their own personal insecurities or past lived experiences. And the way it's perceived as well is also a result of like maturity. I would say emotional intelligence. And that doesn't necessarily come with age at all. Like, that's what I've seen.
You are correct. You
Just
are
my
correct.
experience. So, okay.
You are correct. So I do think, you make a great point. You have to know your audience. You have to know who you're talking with about how to form the messages that reach them in the right ways and still get the job done. And that's part of the task, and it's not always an easy one.
Yeah. So what would you say is the difference between being assertive and being abrasive?
I think the lack of consideration for how it lands with other people.
Okay. So how do you know if someone is like, if they're crossing that line?
I think you can't know. You can't always know, right? But if you're the person delivering the message, you probably know if you're considering the other person or not. And that person is aware if they're being abrasive or not. And then if you're experiencing it on the other side, sometimes it's hard to tell what someone's intentions are or if they've considered it. But, if it's a clear violation of that, you know it. And if it's not and it kind of walks the line, then you just kind of bookmark it and you see what the pattern is moving ahead. But to me, when I think about abrasiveness, I think about somebody who isn't really considering the emotional or the kind of how it lands with other people. And I think abrasiveness is seen differently depending on who you are, right? For some people, they say, they're just passionate about it, right? And for other people, or they're just really, they don't have time.
Yeah.
And that's always my favorite excuse, because it's that you didn't have time to phrase things in a proper way. I'm not understanding where the time crunch led to the insensitivity, but that's always an interesting excuse that people can give.
As I'm building another team that's new in a new industry, particularly for myself, I'm thinking about this more because you're mentioning intentionality. And I'm thinking what I'm doing now is I'm going to start the conversation with my intentions with this conversation are to X, Y, and Z. Like, start the conversation so that I share my intention. Now, I don't know if that is the best way to do it, because some people feel as if I don't know. I think that some people feel as if they don't want to insult the intelligence of the other person, speak down to them, as if they don't understand. But for me, I just want to be clear of my heart, because it's never to be abrasive. That's never the intention. And with a lot of leaders, they get misunderstood.
So could I just push you a little bit and ask
Sure.
you why you would feel, as the boss, that you would need to kind of set that up rather than having them see you as like, look, the boss is like, you're always going to be looking out for the best interest of the company. Like, the company is always first. And maybe sometimes people disagree with that, but that's the stance that most people I work with come from, is if you're the CEO, or you're the founder, like the company's always first and you're doing whatever you need to do in service to the company. And you're never going to be intentionally cruel to those that work with you or for you, but you certainly don't need to put yourself in a one down position so that people are like, okay, like what's coming next? Like,
Yeah.
but you could say, hey, I love having you here I love the way in which you're directing the team. And if you're giving feedback, like there's some feedback I would love to continue to work with you on so that you can continue to rise to the next level or kind of really make the product as good as it could be or whatever it is and really give that direction because you have the authority, you have the seat. And if people are not going to appreciate how you lead or you feel like you have to almost like set a context that excuses giving direct feedback, then they're going to feel like, I mean, this sounds really bad, but I'll say it anyway. Sometimes people perceive that as a vulnerability or a weakness,
Ah,
but
I-
you're the leader. You don't need to make excuses for how you're going to deliver things, especially if it's done with a good intention.
ah, very
Just,
good. See,
just my thought.
and this is why people hire professionals like Kay. This is what
Fair.
she does, guys. This is what she does.
Yeah.
So yeah, if I come into this particular business, if I'm brought in, then it's like, uh-oh. No, that's the thing. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, they may feel as if I'm brought in, they're getting fired or something really bad.
Interesting.
So yeah, and it's a different industry. It's a different group of people that are being led. And it's different. I come from engineering, mostly type A, men, whatever, straight to the point. This other industry is beauty and wellness, completely different. You're dealing with a more emotional crowd. And so me personally, I have to balance that. Like, oh, wait. But luckily, when I'm brought in on that side, it's like, uh-oh, they're bringing in Monique. So wait, this is serious. But it may not be. I may need to say some things. So on to one of these points where you talk about a lot as far as being a straight shooter.
Yeah.
That's the term you use. And in your latest newsletter, you said something that really stood out to me, which said that people respect clarity more than they respect politeness. Let's dig into that. Because I make it a point to be polite. And I don't think that always works in my favor. So to see that in writing like that was like, huh.
Yeah.
Why do you think people equate clarity with conflict?
I think because to have clarity, sometimes you have to say things that are hard to say. I'll pull it out of a work context because I also said clarity and being a straight shooter builds trust. And that's really important to me. This is going to be a silly example, but I think people will get it. If you're going to go shopping for jeans, right? You don't want to bring the person with you who always tells you what you want to hear. You want the person who is going to say, you know what, Julie, those aren't your best. Those don't fit you quite right. Those aren't your best look. Like, it's not great, right? They're kind of insulting your body and how it looks in these particular jeans and that these aren't really flattering. And maybe they even give you some really direct ways in which they're not flattering. But at the end of the day, you brought that person because you trust their judgment. You know they're going to tell it to you the way it is. And that when you do find that really good pair, they're going to tell you, like, that really works. And then you trust them because they're willing to say the hard things and unpopular things, but they're saying it because it comes from a place that is actually in your best, like looking out for you, looking out for the best interest. And so when I think about clarity, I think about someone who you can rely on is always looking out for the best interest of the company. It's not personal. It's not meant to hurt you. And that if you're able to be that person, the other thing they know is like if you have an employee who comes to you and you're somebody who's not clear and not straightforward, they don't always know how to read you. Or they don't know, like, she says that she likes this, but I'm not sure. But if you're someone who has the reputation for like, yeah, if she says she likes it, because if she doesn't, she's going to tell you, right? Like if she has feedback, she's going to give you feedback. They know they can rely on what you have to say. And so when they get your stamp or they understand what you need or you're kind of clear with them, they understand it's coming from a good place. And that's like a great thing Kim Scott in her book, Radical Candor, talks a lot about is that you can be very direct with people, if they understand it comes from a good place where you're not looking to humiliate them or make them put them down. And I think that means all the difference in the world. Like if you pull someone aside and say, hey, when you're presenting next time, like let's reduce the slides in half. I want to make sure that you keep everyone's attention in the room. That's some people would say, oh, why are you criticizing them? Another person might say, you know what? I learned a lot when they pulled me aside and gave me that feedback so that next time I gave a presentation and it was for the executive team, man, I knocked it out of the park. Like they set me up to win. So it's all about how things are delivered. And again, with that intentionality and spirit, if it's coming from a place of dragging people down or humiliating them, that's a very different
Very
animal.
different thing. One thing I've learned from being a professor in a business school is that you can't please everybody.
Yeah.
So you're in a room with 30, 40 people. They all get the exact same message and the exact same energy, the exact same intentionality,
Yeah.
everything. And it's perceived different ways by different people.
Yeah. True. Some people are going to get angry. Some
Yeah.
people are going to get hurt. Some people are going to be offended. And you have to know yourself and feel confident enough in yourself that like that's going to happen sometimes, but it's not worth reducing your own power so that everyone feels nice about it. And
Exactly.
but you do your best. And I can't imagine being a professor. I mean, you have people, I don't know, at the business school, what age range they're in, if you're teaching like the executive education program or other programs, but man, I can't imagine the personalities you have in that room.
Yeah.
And that's a lot to wrangle. So how do you deal with that when you have someone who doesn't take it the right way?
I don't worry about it. And that's the thing. You can't make it
Huh.
to where I am in life being concerned with every single opinion of everything. Again, I understand my intentionality. I understand the impact I'm there to have. And I know that I'm having it with the people that are ready to receive it.
Fantastic. That is exactly it. Like you are a model of exactly what my message I hope to bring forward because you understand who you are, what your intention is. And if they don't read it right, you will never get kind of where you are if you're not able to withstand a little bit of that, like the people who aren't going to see it the right way.
Yeah. I mean, and another thing is everyone's not going to like you, and nor should they, because I don't like
That's right.
everybody myself. So, I mean, we're just being human and
Yeah.
honest. You don't like everyone, and everyone is not going to like you, and that's okay. We could still be respectful to each other. So,
That's right. And when you say that's okay, I mean, I think that's the thing that your audience really needs to dig into because I think it takes a lot of experience, a lot of confidence, and a lot of knowing who you are to say, yeah, it's okay if other people take it wrong, if they don't like you, if you get a little bit of pushback, if they say some things about you that aren't true, all of that is okay.
you have to be okay with it to reach certain levels of
Yeah.
success. So, I couldn't imagine being a politician, though. They get dragged like terribly. I couldn't do that, but yeah. So I want to get into the whole idea of limiting beliefs because there's
Mm,
something you write about that. Here's a direct quote from you in your newsletter. Most founders think they're stuck because of the market, the team, or the timing. But the real bottleneck, it's them.
mm,
So that's a term, the whole limiting beliefs thing is really a common phrase folks are using now, but most
yeah.
people don't really understand what that means. But in your article, you wrote that the growth enemy lies within. So what are some of the most common internal barriers you see leaders and founders face when they say they want to scale, but don't, right?
Right. And it's interesting. I think that for the newsletter, the ultra successful newsletter, the reason why I had started it is because what I see in those who are performing at a really high level is often the way in which they approach challenges and problems are just so different than some of the people who are stuck. And one of the primary differences is that they really take ownership of everything. It's never the market's fault. It's never, oh, the economy's not doing well. because they understand that as a human being existing on this earth, the market is going to flux, the economy is going to flux, you're going to have all sorts of different people in power. And you know what? You have to succeed despite that. Your company has to grow despite that. And so it's on you personally to figure out how you work with what you've got. And I think that sense of ownership and also this internal locus of control, which I don't mention in the article, but the internal locus of control means that at the end of the day, you believe that you are the driver of your fate. You are the person who decides how successful you become, how much you earn, how happy your relationship is, that no one else makes those decisions for you. It's nothing external.
Yep.
And it also takes away any excuse making that you'll hear people have. And they just don't accept that. I think that some people will say, oh, well, Dr. Gurner, it's very unrealistic, or it takes two to like make things work in a relationship, or what if the market does X, Y, and Z? And the truth is they do get hit, right? It's not that like they never get divorced or they never have their businesses take a bad turn. But at the end of the day, they end up looking within and saying, how did I contribute to this? What could I have done differently? How will I not make those mistakes again? What can I do to put it in the best position now? It is all on them. It isn't, oh, my engineer he left with messy code and our product sucks and there's so many bugs. Because at the end of the day, the really fantastic leaders say, if there's tons of bugs in our product, it's because I wasn't doing my job. I wasn't paying attention. I wasn't like, it's on them. So I do think that with limiting beliefs and people who, will talk, they're not scaling, they're allowing all of these other things to become reasons instead of seeing them as challenges. They see them as obstacles or walls. And we have to say, okay, I only have X amount of ad dollars, or I only have X amount of positions as a small company, or X amount of contacts. So how am I going to figure this out? And all the top folks find ways of figuring it out. That's how they operate. And I'm sure you have a background in engineering. That is like baseline expectation for an exceptional engineer.
Yeah, the problem solving part, because it's not one thing, it's another, is what people say. But it's interesting because some people will fall into that trap because of who they surround themselves with. And they'll surround themselves with people who will actually give them the excuses for why they fell short, and it makes them feel better. And then they surround themselves with those people more often because it makes them feel better about that shortcoming. And then another thing that I've seen is that people will actually seek therapists and coaches who will also double click on that emotion and console them on it. And instead of like saying, okay, that's what happened, this is what you did, okay, so what's next, right? And so I think
common.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. I was going to say a really common thing that I do is I talk about it sometimes with folks and I say, well, let's review the tape. Like when you think about a football game, when you do a successful thing or you do a terrible thing and you lose the game, you always rewatch that tape. You rewind it, you rewatch it, and you say, where did we really screw up? And where did we really make some great plays? And you have to be really honest or your game never gets better. If all we do is say, well, they do have a lot of big guys on that team, so, they blocked us. So you can't, if you end there, your team is going to have a terrible season. So when you talk about who you surround yourself with matters, to me, it makes me think about culture in organizations. Do we allow it to exist in our organizations that people will say, like, miss deadlines and then give an excuse and like, that's totally cool. Like, we're just not hitting our deadlines because it was a really hard problem, or we're not hitting our deadlines because that person I've heard people say that person didn't respond to their email, right? Or like, my goodness, right? People need to have specific things they own. We have to hold them accountable to that. But it starts with holding ourselves accountable to the things that we want to do. And we have that model. But as soon as you allow yourself to surround yourself with people who make excuses, who think it's okay to set these kind of precedents where we blame things outside of ourselves, you just end up getting more of it. And so the therapist that you mention or the coach that you mention, sadly, even though they're stroking someone and making them feel good in the moment, man, they are contributing to the ceiling they will have in their career.
Yeah.
And I tell people before we engage, I'll say, like, tell me a little bit about how you respond to being pushed or challenged. Like, my job, just know I'm always on your side, but my job is to make you better. Like,
Mhm.
and sometimes that will mean being kind of uncomfortable.
Uncomfortable. Some
So,
people refuse to be uncomfortable, though.
yeah,
They really reject that because somewhere someone told them that's not what life is. It's about being happy all the time and just surrounding yourself and just things that make you feel happy. And one of the things, particularly with students, 'cause I'm around a lot of young people, students, I'll say everything that you want is on the other side of something you don't feel like doing.
that's
Like
great.
everything you want is over there.
That's
So,
great. How do they respond to that as kind of young people?
yeah, they look at me like, it's something called a Gen Z stare. They'd be like,
But you have great examples right there. I mean, like, hey, you
yeah,
want an A, you have to like wade through the work. If you
yeah,
want to like get an internship, you've got to like really put forth a really great product and make sure that you're doing well. Like there are so many great examples of that. And we're human beings are built with a range of emotions. And to say that
yeah.
we should only live in one of them is odd and
It's,
strange.
yeah. That's a great way to put it, to say we should only live in one of them. Wow. That's true. There's a range of emotions, but you can't make particularly business decisions on your emotions
You're right.
because that's a temporary state and it's your personal truth in that moment, but it's not the entire truth of what's happening.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So I do think that like this is where when you start to think about culture, if the people that you work with and the people you decide to hire and the people that you surround yourself with are people who take ownership, work through hard problems, ask for advice, are willing to be a little uncomfortable, and then you're going to have a much different culture than if you have a group of people who make excuses or don't want to be uncomfortable or kind of start rumors or any of that kind of stuff. You're building a winning team, and winning teams, each person takes ownership. You see people, if you watch any sports, the high level sports game at all, like when they mess up, nobody has to beat them up. They beat themselves up pretty
Yeah.
badly
Oh, yeah.
because you want those people on your team because they feel enormous pressure to perform, not just for themselves, but like for the larger win. And you want those folks. And if you have people who mess up all the time and still think they're great, as an observer on a sports team, we say, wow, that guy's a jerk. Like,
Yeah.
who does he think he is? Like, we all call it out when we see it on a screen. But when it surrounds us in our workplace, we somehow think they might have a point. So it's wild.
Oh, that's really deep. You really made me think when you said athletes that are like that, for sure. Now that I even look at my kids who play collegiate sports. They
Mm.
beat themselves up if
Well,
there is like a wrong pass. And like in the game, they're like holding their head like, oh my God, I can't believe I just did that. And then they work super hard to get that goal back. And
yeah.
so it's a mindset. It's like ingrained in who they are, especially athletes that are really elite and
Yeah.
hard. Great point. So one of the things you mentioned as well is that many companies will hit like a few million in revenue and stay there comfortably for years. What's really happening beneath the surface at that stage?
I think that people, we can cap out and then not feel like we can say we want growth. But then, when you get comfortable and you're making a decent amount and your company's doing okay, it's easy to not want to rock the boat or shake things up. It's also really easy to not want to be like in new spaces again
Mm.
because you get to that point where you say you're kind of uncomfortable. There are, as you go through these stages of growth as a company,
Yeah.
and like getting to the $1 million mark is really exciting. But then as you're scaling up to 5 or 10 or 20 or 30, and then you have people like 100, 200. 200 can get very comfy for a lot of people for revenue. And then but getting to like 4 or 5 is a really big leap. And so it means that you have to change sometimes your team structures, sometimes how you operate, the new types of things that you bring in, things that you are very unfamiliar with, putting yourself in waters with people who are larger competitors or people who are going to be a little bit more aggressive. And if you can operate under the radar and just have your nice little company, and sometimes people like doing that, and that's totally fine. But you can't say like, oh, I don't know why we're not growing. Like, if you're not making a decision to go after that growth and acting on it, you're not going to just grow. Like, it has to be a decision. And that decision has to be backed by actions. What would make your company grow right now? Most people I talk to, if I say, hey, give me like 2 things that if you really invested in them would really help your company move ahead, all of them know the answer. But then the question is, why aren't they doing it?
Why aren't they doing it? So what do you find? Why aren't they doing it?
Usually it's because they either get caught up in like busy. So like there's so much going on that it gets kind of put on the back burner, and they tell themselves the story that, once we get to X and I'm not in the product anymore, then I'm going to like do this initiative and we're really going to like add fuel to the fire. But then that moment kind of 6 months becomes a year, becomes 2 years, becomes 3 years. And then they watch their competitor do something like that and they go, oh, we had that idea 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of times you have to be able to continually, as a leader, put yourself in the highest and best use of the company and continue to do that. And it means you have to pull out of things all the time.
Mm.
And that's hard for people to let go of.
Yeah.
And I get that. Like, you love what you're doing and your teams and you're comfortable in it and you have great things moving ahead and some nice momentum. But if you want to grow, it starts really changing. Maybe there's a big M&A transaction you need to be a part of. Maybe it's raising debt capital and you have to make some things happen. And all these are new spaces and they're kind of scary. But what do you want? So
what do you want? Answer that question. What do you want? And what are you willing to do about it?
yeah.
Now.
So now.
Yeah. So Julie, wow, you've given people a lot to sit with, but most importantly, a roadmap for moving forward. Where can people connect with you, or where do you suggest they go to learn more about you or work with you?
So I have a newsletter that is probably the best place to kind of find me. My client list, I have a couple of years of waiting lists, so probably not going to get in for a while. But the newsletter is ultra successful on Substack. We're one of the top 10 business Substacks out there. Really proud of that. So if people want to direct there, that's fantastic. I'm also at Dr. Gurner, DR, instead of writing it out, on X. I still call it Twitter. On X.
Me too.
I know it's never going to die for me. And also I'm on LinkedIn, as you and I have connected there. So it's been such a pleasure speaking with you. I'm really excited to see where your path ends ahead.
You as well. It's been such a pleasure. And we'll link to your newsletter and your LinkedIn profile and all that in the show notes. So thanks again for joining me today.
I appreciate it. Lovely to speak with you.
Thank you for listening to the Unpolished MBA podcast. To hear more episodes or to request to become a guest, please visit unpolishedmba.com.
Are you running a business that's doing okay, but you know it could be doing better with the right strategy behind it? At TPM Focus, we help organizations get unstuck. Whether you're launching something new, navigating disruption, or aligning your operations with your financial goals, we bring clarity, and most importantly, we execute. If you're tired of random acts and ready to get intentional about cash flow and growth, visit tpmfocus.com.